record and get rid of that. Okay, so now what we should be doing is I'm going to show you this bird, and here is me doing this bird, and everything is going to be upside down then for a while because I can't do this. So when we're drawing this stuff out, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into our picture, and I'm going to do an overdraw on the computer. And inside your computer, this picture preview screen right here will allow you to draw on top of things. So if we go into create and edit, and if I hit draw, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a square in the middle of my page, because we've talked about you don't need to do the whole page. You need to do like a 9x6 area in the middle of the page in order to know where you're going with things. And right now I'm going to put some very light lines in the middle of my drawing right now. And this is going to give me an idea of where I'm going to position things. This is breaking the paper in half. This is breaking the paper in half again. Okay, and then we can do break this section in half. I can draw any kind of lines I want to draw, as long as I draw the same lines on my other piece of paper. Okay, I can even go corner to corner and get some things happening there if I think that would help me. But what you're doing is you're putting in lines here that will help you on your paper. So the next thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to go over to my sheet of paper. I'm going to put my 9, and this, you can take a piece of paper and fold it in half and trace out around it, or you can just give yourself some kind of a rough idea, which is usually what I do. And you'll notice whenever I draw lines, A, I draw them really lightly, and B, I usually put a couple of them down there. I just need to kind of very gently lay out where things go on this piece of paper, right? So we have this square. And this square is our blue square on our paper too, right? Now, the next thing I got to do is I got to put those lines that I drew in the middle of my paper, right? And we talked about, I broke this square in half this way. I broke the square in half this way. And then I broke these two sections in half. And what that gives me is 8 squares. And there are 8 squares on my picture, right? So if we talk about this first square right here, this one right here is, this is all going to be upside down for me. Is that it, or is that it? Right, well, it needs to be light because I still need to do stuff on there, right? So I need to, I need to be able to see it so that I can draw it. So right here, this is the top of my page. Yes, so this square right here is that same square. So this is 1 right here, and that's 1 over there, all right? Now what's going on here is this circle, when I'm doing my picture, this circle is right here, right? So this circle is, if we look at where it's positioned, it is positioned in the middle of this intersection, right? It's a little bit more over the top of it right here, but it almost reaches there and it almost reaches there. But there's this circle right here and it's a little bit more on the bottom of it. So right now, I've got this circle pretty much positioned in the same spot. Now, I'm also going to tell you that when I'm looking at drawing right now, this is upside down. This is the part that's closest to me. This is the part that's furthest away. So things might get a little bit tricky for me here. Now, the next thing we have to do is we have to put this head in here, right? And this head falls right about here, right? It's before this line. It kind of crosses over that line. And it just sits right up there. So this is about where that head is in relationship to everything else. So right now, I just got my bird and his body positioned on my paper. And you see, like I said, I use a bunch of really light lines so I can go back through and pick out the lines that I want to use. Okay. This spot right here, whoopsie, This right here, we can see falls in the middle of that. It stays from here. But if you see the things that I've drawn, they are all in relationship to this grid. And now I've got my bird on my paper, don't I? So what I've done is I've looked at, and let's do this right here. Gosh darn it. If I look at where things start, that line starts right about here. It comes over and dips down right when it crosses that line. It stays along the bottom here and just runs along there. But all the lines that I have put on my page right now are the lines that I've drawn on that picture, and they all fall in relationship to that grid. So it helps me position things on the paper and know that it will fall into the right spot and fill up my page at that point. So when you're using these grids, it's exceedingly helpful. So now that I've gotten this part of this laid out, I can totally get rid of my lines that I've got here. And then I can work in relationship to the bird. So actually I need to put those lines back on there though, don't I? So now I'm going to look at the things that fall on my bird and figure out where those are in position to here. Like right in the middle, this part right here is where this wing is too. So I can do this right now and say, okay, it starts right about here. It comes to before this, right? And when it's coming into it, it comes down to about here. But I'm looking at where it falls on this grid. And I can actually look at where it falls in relationship to this circle as well, right? So that circle I drew in there. So what I'm using is this grid and those circles that I put on my page to do this. And I can do all of the overdrawing on my computer so that I can see what I'm looking for. After I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my bird and I'm going to start to pull out the lines that I know that I need. So like we did all of these lines. And now I can say, okay, I'm going to pick this line and this line, and I'm going to start to pull out the outside shape of my bird. And there's somewhere in here. And the lines that I don't need, I'm just going to ignore. And the lines that I need, I'm going to make darker. But since I drew those lines lightly in the beginning, I can go back through here and start to figure out where things are, where my bird is, and what's going on. Okay. So that's the idea of using a grid to lay out your stuff.